In the year 1981 of the Third Age, the Dwarves of Moria finally accepted that they were powerless to defeat the Balrog that had taken over their kingdom, and they had no choice but to flee from their ancient home and find new lands elsewhere. Many of these dwarves would follow their king, called Thrain the First, to the Lonely Mountain, where they established the great kingdom of Erebor, though some of these dwarves chose to settle in the Grey Mountains in the far north, a region that was mostly unexplored and rich, though it was also the home of dragons. For these dragons had fled to the land of Forodwite, an icy cold wasteland, after the defeat of their master Morgoth at the end of the First Age, and they occupied the eastern regions of the Grey Mountains known as the Withered Heath, turning them into an infamous breeding ground. Now these dragons were cold drakes, the weakest out of all of Morgoth's dragons, for they could not breathe fire, though even the least of dragons was a terrible, formidable foe that should not be taken lightly. One of the mightiest of these cold drakes was Scatha the Worm, who lived sometime during the 21st century of the Third Age, and he pillaged many of the halls of the dwarfs of the Grey Mountains, gathering their gold and riches in a great treasure hoard. Some of these dragons, and perhaps even Scatha, also troubled the Eotheod, the ancestors of the Rohirrim, who had recently moved to the valley beyond the rivers Greylin and Langwell in the shadows of the Grey Mountains, though their king, Fram, would ensure his people's safety by slaying Scatha the Worm, a valorous deed which would be long remembered in the history and songs of Rohan. It seems that Scatha's death at the hands of Fram intimidated the cold drakes of the Grey Mountains, for they no longer attacked the lands of the Eotheod, and all of the vast treasures and riches that Scatha had gathered over the years were Fram's for the taking. Now when the dwarfs of the Grey Mountains learned that Scatha the Worm was slain, they claimed ownership over this treasure hoard that had been stolen from them, and they demanded that Fram should return it to them, for they felt that it was theirs by right, though Fram chose to ignore their request, and he wouldn't even give up a single coin from this hoard. He probably felt that the dwarfs were incredibly greedy to even consider making such a request, especially since this was no mere foe that he defeated, but a great dragon, and so he decided to send the dwarfs a necklace made out of the sharp teeth of Scatha, along with a message stating that the teeth of a dragon were hard to come by, and that the dwarfs had no jewels that could match them in all their treasuries. I think he was clearly mocking the dwarfs, implying that since they weren't able to slay Scatha themselves and claim their treasure, then they should respect Fram's great deed and his own claim to these riches. It's hard to say which party was in the wrong here, though I feel that both the dwarfs and Fram could have handled it better, and perhaps they might have found some sort of compromise. However, it seems that their story would end in tragedy, for many people believe that after the dwarfs received this insulting message, they killed Fram, and after that day, there was no great love between the dwarfs and the men of the Eotheod. We're never told whether the dwarfs reclaimed any of this treasure, or if it was kept by the Eotheod. However, we do know of at least one relic which remained in Rohan's possession, an ancient horn that became an heirloom of the House of the Kings of Rohan until it was passed on to the hobbit, Merry. Now the dwarven colony in the Grey Mountains would grow stronger and larger, for many of Durin's folk started to gather there, and in the year 2210, Durin the First, the king of the Dwarves of Erebor, decided to join his people in the Grey Mountains, and he brought with him the Arkenstone, for it was an heirloom and symbol of the kings of Durin's folk. Over the next 360 years, these dwarves found many riches and prospered, possibly aided by the dwarven ring of power that was held by their king. Though as is often the case with dwarves, their riches and greed would be their downfall, for dragons were attracted to gold and treasures, and the dragons of the north had been slowly multiplying and becoming strong once more. They came down upon the dwarfs in the year 2570 of the Third Age, and they plundered many of the dwarven halls and treasures. The final straw came in the year 2589, when the Dwarven King, Dain I, and his second son called Fror were slain by a great cold drake outside of the door of their very halls. The tragic loss of their king and his son caused many of the dwarfs of the Grey Mountains to abandon their halls, for they were unable to defeat these dragons, and many of them would follow Dain's youngest son called Gror to the Iron Hills, while the rest of the dwarfs chose to follow Dain's eldest son and heir called Tror to re-establish the kingdom of Erebor. They probably hoped that they would be free from the plague of dragons once and for all, though merely 180 years later, a dragon that was greater and more ferocious than any they had faced before would attack and drive them out of their kingdom of Erebor, the mighty dragon called Smaug. Anyway friends, this wraps up today's video and I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this topic, particularly on the story of Fram and the dwarfs. Which party do you think was most at fault, and who had the best claim over that treasure? As always, if you're interested, check out our Facebook, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter, Discord, and some of our affiliate links in the video description. And if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe to join our fellowship today. I hope to see you all in my next video, where together we'll once again explore the magical world and lore of Middle-earth.